بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Welcome, brothers and sisters, in our family Halaqa for this month. Alhamdulillah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us this chance and to be together again in a house of Allah. Today, inshallah, we have our scholar. He is in his way, inshallah. He's coming in any minute. He will arrive in any minute, inshallah. So I would like to start, inshallah, with our children and see which one we'll start with. Who want to start? I think who's going to read from the Quran, to start with the Quran, the whole Quran first. Yeah, go ahead, inshallah. Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Mata Sabra Shah Jahan and I'll be reciting Surah Zilzalah. A'udhu billahi minash shaytanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Idha zulzilatil ardu zilzalaha wa akhrajatil ardu athqalaha. وَقَالَ الْإِنسَانُ مَا لَهَا يَوْمَئِذٍ تُحَدِّثُ أَخْبَارَهَا بِأَنَّ رَبَّكَ أَوْحَى لَهَا يَوْمَئِذٍ يَصْدُرُ النَّاسُ أَشْتَاتًا لِيُرَوْا أَعْمَالَهُمْ فَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا يَرَهُ وَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ شَرًّا يَرَهُ. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. MashaAllah. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. So, who's going to be next, inshallah?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل يا أيها الكافرون لا أعبد ما تعبدون ولا أنتم عابدون ما أعبد ولا أنا عابد ما عبدتم ولا أنتم عابدون ما أعبد لكم دينكم ولي دين.
ما شاء الله. جزاكم الله خير. ما شاء الله. ما شاء الله. الله أكبر. Who's next?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. سورة العاديات. والعاديات ضبحا فالموريات قدحا فالمغيرات صبحا فأثرن به نقعا فوسطن به جمعا إن الإنسان لربه لكنود وإنه على ذلك لشهيد وإنه لحب الخير لشديد أفلا يعلم إذا بعثر ما في القبور وحصل ما في الصدور إن ربهم بهم يومئذ لخبير.
الله أكبر. ما شاء الله. جزاكم الله خير. ما شاء الله. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَأَلْحَقْنَا بِهِمْ ذُرِّيَّتَهُم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in this place that the believers, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will join them with their descendant. So that is in Jannah, inshallah. So that the scholar, when they speak about this, is the delicate relationship between ancestry and descendant and the families that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gathered them in Jannah. Does our ancestors help us, or can we help our ancestors in entering Jannah and heaven? Of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this ayah remind us, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam explained that in some of the hadith, that when there is iman in the ancestors and there is iman in the descendant, in the offspring of the same family, each one of them will help the other. Even if you never saw your grandfather or your grandfather, you never saw him, you never know him, but you are descending from that person, you will know him in the day of judgment, and he will be able to intercede for you. And you, if you are a better believer, you will be able to intercede for your grandfather. The condition is to have faith in both the generations. If the belief is there, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala join them to each other in Jannah, inshallah. So who's next, inshallah? Yeah, go ahead.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم تبت يدا أبي لهب وتب ما أغنى عنه ماله وما كسب سيصلى نارا ذات لهب وامرأته حمالة الحطب في جيدها حبل من مسد.
ما شاء الله، الله أكبر. Thank you very much. ما شاء الله، جزاكم الله خير. Go ahead, inshallah.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لا يسأم الإنسان من دعاء الخير وإن مسه الشر فيئوس قنوط ولئن أذقناه رحمة منا من بعد ضراء مسته ليقولن هذا لي وما أظن الساعة قائمة ولئن رجعت إلى ربي إنني عنده للحسنى فلننبئن الذين كفروا بما عملوا ولنذيقنهم من عذاب غليظ. وإذا أنعمنا على الإنسان أعرض ونأى بجانبه وإذا مسه الشر فذو دعاء عريض. قل أرأيتم إن كان من عند الله ثم كفرتم به من أضل ممن هو في شقاق بعيد. سنريهم آياتنا في الآفاق وفي أنفسهم حتى يتبين لهم أنه الحق أولم يكف بربك أنه على كل شيء شهيد ألا إنهم في مرية من لقاء ربهم ألا إنه بكل شيء محيط صدق الله العلي العظيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Any other of our kids like to read? Okay, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ya Habibi, Ya Muhammad, Ya Nabi, Salam Alayka, Ya Rasul, Salam Alayka, Salawatullah Alayka, Ya Habib, Salam Alayka, Anta Nurullahi Fajran, Anta Nurullahi Fajran, Jit Badal Usran, Rabbuna Alaka Fajran, Ya Imamul Anbiya, Ya Nabi, Salam Alayka, Ya Rasul, Salam Alayka, Ya Habib, Salam Alayka, Salawatullah Alayka. As-salamu alaykum, as-salamu noor-e alam, as-salamu deen-e alam, as-salamu noor-e alam. Ya Habibi, Ya Muhammad, Ya Nabi, Salam Alayka, Ya Rasul, Salam Alayka, Ya Habib, Salam Alayka, Salawatullah Alayka. Anta Nurullahi Fajran, Jit Badal Usran, Rabbuna Alaka Qadran, Ya Imamul Anbiya, Ya Nabi, Salam Alayka, Ya Rasul, Salam Alayka, Ya Habib, Salam Alayka, Salawatullah Alayka, Ya Nabi, Salam Alayka. Jazakallah khair, brothers.
MashaAllah. Nice voice. So, Alhamdulillah, we are blessed. Today, we have Shaykh Dr. Moiz Hasan. We saw him before here. He visited us, and thankfully, he came back to visit us again today. We are very grateful for our scholar. He has a PhD in the history and philosophy of science. He had a master's degree in history of science and medicine. And more than that, his study in Islamic, he have his study in Islamic study, and with his wife, they established the Maryam Institute for education. It's an educational institute for women which offer free on-site programs and the free online courses for women around the world. So we are blessed, alhamdulillah, to have him today here. So Jazakumullah khair. Sheikh, if you would like to start, inshallah. Jazakumullah. No, that's his own. That's all. Yeah, until he starts. Let's start. Yeah, sure. Alhamdulillah wa kafa. Wa salamun ala ibadihi allazina istafa. Amma ba'd. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والذين جاهدوا فينا لنهدينهم سبلنا سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with the deen of Islam. And deen of Islam is a comprehensive way of living our life. There are two aspects of this deen. One is the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is called huququllah, to fulfill those rights. For example, salah, zakat, fasting, etc. And then there is a second component which is called the rights of other people around us, our family, our spouse, our relatives, our neighbors, our friends, and fulfilling the rights that they have over us, which is called huququl ibad. And if a person can fulfill these two rights, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can give us a taste of Jannat in this world. We don't have to wait for Akhirah. This life can become so beautiful that a person can enjoy the pleasures of Jannah in this life. So a lot of times we have spoken about the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Today we thought that we will highlight certain aspects of the rights of other people. People who are around us to fulfill their rights. In Arabic, there is a word which is used for this that is called sila rahmi. Sila rahmi means womb. And sila rahmi means
to join the ties of kinship, to join ties with your relatives, to join ties of your family members, to keep yourself connected with them. To joining these ties of kinship, this is a very big ibadat.
So,
On and off.
okay.
So wireless is not enough. Wireless is not-
This one. Yeah, big one. We need to keep only one. This is off. Yeah, this is wireless off.
नहीं, wireless channel, wireless one. Only wireless.
Let us try only this one.
Yes.
Is there an on
Yeah.
off on that? Maybe you just turn it off.
We turn it off, it's the same. It's from here, the sound. Yeah, I think this one is, let's try and you can change it.
Need that on this.
Want me to hold this?
Yes.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So fulfilling the rights
Yeah, we have to take it out.
Fulfilling the rights of our relatives in Arabic is known as Sila Rahmi. Joining these ties of kinship, this is a very big act of worship in our deen. And on the other hand, severing these ties with our relatives, with our family members, with our close friends, severing these relationships of kinship, this is viewed as a very big sin in our deen. Now the question comes that what are the ways in which we can join these ties of kinship? So there are several. So for example, if our relatives are poor and needy, we fulfill their need. If they're sick, we pay them a sick visit, we ask them about their health. If they pass away, we remember them, make dua for them. If they're in some difficulties, some sorrow, some grief, we try to alleviate their pain, their suffering. If you are happy, you include them in your happiness. If they are sad, you try to console them. If they're engaged in any activity of sin, then you try to stop them gently and you try to invite them towards goodness. If they request any counsel, any mashwara from you, you give them counsel with sincerity, with ikhlas. In other words, that you think well about them. You think about their well-being. You maintain salam with them. You maintain contact with them. You make dua for them. All of these acts are known as sila rahmi, that you join this tie of kinship with your relatives, to do good to your relatives, in other words. Now, this is such an important act in our deen. Then there's one ayat of Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first mentions, in fact, He commands us that you should have fear of Him. And right next, in the very same ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands us that you should also fear with regard to these relationships that you have with your relatives. So, Ya ayyuhan nas, ittaqu rabbakum alladhi khalaqakum min nafsin wahida wa khalaqa minha zawjaha wa batha minhuma rijalan kathiran wa nisaa wattaqullaha allazi tasaaluna bihi wal arham. That fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, have taqwa with regard to your relationship with Allah, and then immediately after that, fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with regard to the relationships that you have around you. And on the other hand, one place Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the attributes of the pious believers. Those who are beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And one of the attributes that Allah mentions about such people is that they join these ties of kinship, these ties with their relatives. وَالَّذِينَ يَسِلُونَ مَا أَمَرَ اللَّهُ بِهِ أَن يُوصَلَ. That those who maintain these ties of kinship with whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded them to maintain these ties with. So we understand that this is a very praiseworthy attribute in our deen, to have good, to think well about your family members, about your relatives, and to keep these connections strong in our lives, rather than breaking them or severing them. And not only Quran, but in one hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said that joining these ties of kinship is part and parcel of our very iman. It's a requirement of our iman. Man kana yu'minu billahi wal yawmil akhiri falyasil rahima. That whosoever believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the last day, they should join these ties of kinship. Not only is this a requirement of our iman, in fact, more than that, this is the essence of the teachings of Islam. Like the summary teaching, the essential teachings of Islam, it's one of those foundational teachings. Hazrat Amr bin Abasa radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he narrates that it was the initial days of Nabuwwat of Islam, and I was not yet a Muslim at this point. And I came to Makkah Mukarramah to just check out who is this Prophet. And I met the Prophet ﷺ, and I asked him, then man anta? Who are you? And the Prophet ﷺ replied that ana nabiyun, I'm a messenger, I'm a nabi. So I asked that ma huwa nabiyun, that who is a nabi? And the Prophet ﷺ said that arsalani Allahu bi ayyi shay'in arsalaka Allah. Arsalani Allah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent me. So I asked that bi ayyi shay'in arsalaka Allah. Then with what is that thing with which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent you? And what is that main core foundational message with which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent you to humanity? And the Prophet replied that arsalani bisilatil arham, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent me to join these ties of kinship with this message that people should join these ties with their relatives. The Prophet did not say here that I have been sent with the message of salah, or I have been sent with the message of zikr, or I have been sent with the message of many other things. But none of those things were mentioned here. Rather, I have been sent with the message of sila rahmi, of joining these ties of kinship with our relatives. Meaning that the central, the core, the foundational feature of the message of the Islam is this teaching that we should join these ties with our relatives. There's another hadith, Hazrat Abdullah bin Salam radiallahu ta'ala an. He was a convert from Judaism. He was a Jew initially. He narrates that when the Prophet ﷺ migrated to Medina Munawwara, I came to see him. And I was a Jew at that time. And I heard that the Prophet ﷺ was saying, the first khutbah, one of the first things that I heard the Prophet ﷺ say when he arrived in Medina Munawwara was this, that ayyuhan nas, O people, afshu salam, spread the greetings of salam, wa at'imut ta'am, and feed those people who are hungry, wa silul arham, and join these ties of kinship. Join these ties with your relatives. This was the first message that the Prophet ﷺ gave to the people in Medina Munawwara after Hijrah. And one of the three things was that you join these ties of kinship. So in many riwayat, in many narrations, we understand that after Iman, the first thing, right? The next thing after Iman is Sila Rahim, right? One person, he actually came from the tribe of Banu Khas'am, and he came and asked the Prophet ﷺ this question, that Ayyul Amali Ahabbu ilallahi ta'ala, that what is the act which is most beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Qala imanum billah. The Prophet ﷺ said that it is to have iman on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the most beloved deed in the sight of Allah. Qala summa ayyun. After this, what is the next most beloved thing in the sight of Allah? Qala silatul arham. It is that you join these ties with your relatives, with your close family friends, your kin. Then that same Sahabi, he asked another question. That ayyul amali awghaza ila Allahi ta'ala. That what is the most deplorable, the most disliked, the most despicable act in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Qala ishraku billah. It is to commit shirk with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Qala summa ayyun. After this, what is the most despicable act? The Prophet ﷺ said, Kati'atul rahim. It is to sever these ties with your relatives. So the Hadith Mubarak is telling us that after bringing Iman, the most beloved deed in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to join these ties with your relatives. And after shirk, the most despicable act in the sight of Allah is to break these ties with our relatives. And now if we reflect on our own lives, we will realize that how little do we value this command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We find so many people, we pray our salah, we fast, we are remembering Allah, we wear the masnoon libas as well, but very few people who do sila rahmi, who join these relations, who join these ties of kinship with their family members. If you look at this aspect of our life, many of us have so many shortcomings. We find that brothers, they're not speaking to their brothers, right? Sisters have the rift between each other. Months pass by, sometimes years pass by, they don't speak to each other. They drank the milk of the same mother, yet they're not speaking. They're not speaking, they're not saying salam, they're not visiting each other, they're not participating in occasions of joy and happiness, not even on Eid. They're not even participating in occasions of grief, of sorrow. Months pass by. The Prophet ﷺ said that it is not permissible for a believer to separate from his brother for more than 3 days. This is for an ordinary Muslim. That it is not permissible that you break ties for more than 3 days. And here these are not ordinary people, these are brothers, our sisters, family members, close relatives, and not just 3 days, sometimes 3 months, sometimes 3 years pass by. And the issue is not even a big thing, it's a small little issue. People are not speaking to each other. So this life that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us in this world, this is temporary. 5 days, 50 days, we don't know. Right? It's a small temporary amount of life that we have here. We should try to spend this time with muhabba, with love, and in such a way that other people are happy with us. Our spouse, our wife, she is happy with us. Our siblings are happy with us. Our relatives are happy with us. If we spend that time like this, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be happy with us, and Allah ta'ala will give us success in dunya as well as success in akhirah. What is most incredible about this act is that if you look at the ahadith, there are some incredible benefits which are mentioned about this act of joining ties with your relatives, sila rahmi. In one famous hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, I'll just mention what the principle is and then I'm going to come to the hadith. That a person who joins these ties of kinship, they can attain a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala very, very quickly. Wasil billah. And on the other hand, a person who severs these relationships will not be able to draw close to Allah ta'ala. This is Sahih Bukhari Sharif. The Prophet ﷺ said, Hadith Qudsi, that when Allah ta'ala created relationships, right, relationship with your uncle, your aunt, mamu, right, different things, people that you have in your life. So these relationships, they asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we fear that people will not fulfill our rights. And in the relationships were fearful, and they're asking Allah that we fear that the people will not fulfill our rights, will not fulfill our obligations. They will break me. They will break us. They will sever these ties. So then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responded and he said that, are you not pleased with the fact that whoever joins you, whoever joins these relationships, I will join that person to myself. And whoever breaks these relationships, I will put a distance between that person and myself. Clear words. Allah says that whoever joins these ties, I will join that person with myself. What does that mean? That person will attain the qurb of Allah, the closeness, the nearness, the intimacy, the proximity with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is ajib. All of us, we make dua, we wish for this. We wish to get that nearness and closeness of Allah, to attain that qurb of Allah, but we don't use the prescription. The prescription for us, in fact, if you look at this, if we on our own try to draw ourselves close to Allah Ta'ala, that's very difficult. That's very difficult, right? It's a lot of mujahidah struggle. You are walking. You want to reach your destination. But on the other hand, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala pulls someone towards him, then it's only a matter of a few moments. Now it's easy. Now if you have, let's say, an acquaintance. So if you meet an acquaintance, you will say that, oh, nice to meet you. Here is my address. Why don't you come over in the evening and we can talk? So you give that person your address. And if you meet your close friend, university friend, then you won't give the address. You would say, come with me. You'll hold that person's hand and say, come with me. I want to take you to my house. So now this is exactly what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying. That if we want to draw close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then on our own, we might be struggling, we might be striving, and still there is no guarantee whether we'll reach our destination or not. And on the other hand, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala pulls someone, then you are guaranteed you will reach your destination. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decides to pull us, the journey becomes easy. And we find such people in our ummah, that Allah's special glance of mercy fell upon them, their lives changed. Bashar Hafi rahmatullah alayh, he was drinking alcohol in some place. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's special gaze of mercy fell upon him. His life changed. He went on to become one of the most pious wali and friend of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hazrat Junaid Baghdadi rahmatullah alayh, he was a wrestler, a worldly wrestler. One gaze of Allah's rahmah and mercy fell upon him. Life was changed. Life was transformed. He ended up becoming one of the friends, the wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Fudail bin Ayaz rahmatullah alayh, he was a burglar, he was a thief. One special gaze of Allah's mercy, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala completely flipped that person's life. So how can we get this special gaze of Allah's mercy? If we do Sila Rahmi. Sila Rahmi is the way. Joining these ties of kinship is that deed which attracts this special rahmat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, such that that person is then pulled by Allah ta'ala to himself. And in another benefit is that you not only get Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you also get a barakah in your dunya. Some people, they do a lot of things to acquire a long life. They're exercising, dieting, slimming, regular checkup with the doctors. And if you ask them what's the goal is to have a long lasting life, a life of barakah, a life of afiyah, right, of well-being. And there is this one prescription that is given to us in our deen, given by the Prophet himself. And the Prophet said, Hazrat Anas radiallahu ta'ala used the narrator, he says that the Prophet narrated to us that if anyone wants that their rizq should be opened up for them, and either facing some financial difficulty, financial issues with their sustenance, with their risk. They want an expansion in their risk. They want a barakah in their risk. They want this openness in their risk and sustenance. And a person wants that they should be giving a long, lasting, healthy life. So, فَلْيَصِلْ رَحِمَهُ, that person should do sila rahmi with his relatives. He should join these ties with his relatives, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bless him with barakah in his rizq and barakah in his age. We should make intention for this. Make intention for this and then see with open eyes how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give barakah. How Allah ta'ala will give barakah in our age, long-lasting, healthy age. How Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give barakah in our rizq. We finish this barakah when we sever these ties. We are responsible. In fact, on the same topic, there's another hadith. To understand this, let me explain one rule. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a rule in this world that whatever good or bad that you do, you will be compensated for that in akhirah. That's it. But there are some deeds for which you will be compensated for in this dunya as well. You do something good, you will get a compensation in this dunya. So among those acts for which you are rewarded in this dunya, the act which has the quickest effect in this dunya is this act of sila rahmi. Inna ajala ta'ati sawaban silatul rahim, that the act which has the quickest effect in this dunya is the act of sila rahmi. Meaning that the benefit of sila rahmi you will get in this world, and you will get that very, very quickly. Many times, people say that there is someone who is not practicing deen, living a life which is very distant from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, far away from Allah, and yet their wealth is also increasing. Their money is also increasing. Their business is also improving. Their children are also increasing. And sometimes people get confused. Why is this happening? And the reason is because perhaps they're doing sila rahmi. Because sila rahmi is that deed which is not limited or restricted to believers. Anyone who does this, anyone who does sila rahmi, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put barakah, right? Allah will give them barakah in their rizq, right? Rizq and their awlad, it increases because of that. So, this is the answer to that question that people ask, that this person is, not even practicing, so distant, and yet the rizq is increasing. Why? Perhaps the reason is because despite their sins, they're doing sila rahmi with their relatives. In another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said that Allah puts barakah in the home and the age of that person. So many things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala putting barakah in our homes, in our age, in our rizq, right? All for this one amal, that you join ties of kinship with your relatives. Once a Sahabi came and he asked the Prophet ﷺ that dhullini ala amalin a'maluhu yudnini min al-jannah, that guide me to such an act that if I do this, then I will be able to easily enter into Jannah. Beautiful question. So the Prophet ﷺ said that ta'bud Allah, that worship Allah, la tushrik bihi shay'a, don't do shirk. Wa tuqimu salah, establish salah. Wa tu'ti zakah, and give zakah. Wa tasilu za rahimik, and join these ties of kinship with your relatives. When that Sahabi started walking away, the Prophet ﷺ said to those people who were left behind that if this person holds on to these four things, dakhal al-jannah, he will enter into Jannah. Easy entry into Jannah for a person who does sila rahim. And there is this one thing which is very ajib. Normally we don't, what's the reason? Why do we not mend these ties of kinship? Why do we sever these relationships? It's because of our ego, because of our nafs, right? We say that there's a dispute and we sever this relationship. Why should I take the first step? Why should I revive? It's difficult. If I take the first step, the other people will think that was my fault. If I take the first step, this will reduce my reputation, reduce my honor. My nose will be lowered. This is all nafs. This is all our ego. However, in order to attain this rahmat, this mercy of Allah Ta'ala, we have to subdue our nafs. Izzat, always understand that izzat, honor is not what the dunya tells izzat is. Honor does not lie in what the media is telling. Rather, izzat lies in what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. Right? Izzat belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the principle of izzat and honor is that a person who does sila rahmi, who joins these ties of kinship, that person will never, ever be disgraced or humiliated in his life. That person will always get izzat and honor from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for that person is fulfilling the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm going to give you one evidence for this. This is the first revelation. The first time when the first ever revelation, when it came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was in the cave here. All of you know the story, right? And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a bit worried that whether I would be able to carry this burden of revelation or not, this nabuwa, this responsibility of nabuwa or not. So naturally, the Prophet ﷺ was a bit scared. and fearful, because such a tremendous responsibility was being placed on his shoulder. I don't know whether I'll be able to fulfill this responsibility. So Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, he came back from Hira, and this is a riwayat mentioned in Bukhari, Sahih Bukhari Sharif. He came back to his wife, Amma Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha, and said to her that laqad khashitu ala nafsi, that I am scared about myself. I don't know what will happen to me. And Amma Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha, she was a tremendous wife. A tremendous wife. She's encouraging the Prophet ﷺ at a time when the Prophet of that time, the greatest of all prophets, the Prophet ﷺ was a bit fearful. Amma Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha, she is giving reassurance. She is giving that backing, that support, that consolation, and her words of support. Her words of support are so beautiful that from every single word, one can sense that these words are mulhim min Allah. They are being inspired by Allah. What did she say? She said, Kalla. Kalla, this can never be the case. Wallahi, I swear by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yukhzika Allahu abada, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ma yukhzika Allahu abada, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never ever desert you. He will never ever forsake you. He will never ever abandon you. Right? Why? Why will Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not abandon you? Is it because you're intelligent? No. Because you're smart? No. Because you are a good planner? No. Because you are an eloquent speaker? No. Because you have a lot of supporters and influential friends? No. Hazrat Khadija radiallahu ta'ala, she mentioned, what is the reason? Innaka latasilur rahim. Because you join ties of kinship. You join these ties with your relatives. وَتَحْمِلُ الْكَلْ. And you bear the burden of those people who are weak. وَتَكْسِبُ الْمَعْدُومِ. And those who are not able to earn a living, you earn a living for them on their behalf. وَتَكْرِئُ الزَّيْفِ. And you honor your guests. وَتُعِينُ عَلَى نَوَائِبِ الْحَقِّ. And you assist other people in matters of truth. She mentioned the akhlaq of the Prophet ﷺ, the character of the Prophet ﷺ, and within the akhlaq, the first thing that she is mentioning is innaka latasilur rahim, that you join ties of kinship. So we understand that when you join ties of kinship, because of that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never abandon you, will never disgrace you. In fact, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you izzat. Allah will elevate your rank, will elevate your honor. So for those of us, there's a lesson here. For those of us who wish to follow in the footsteps of the Prophet ﷺ, we want to invite other people towards deen. This is a very important attribute that we should inculcate within ourselves, which is to do good to our family, our relatives, think good about them, think about their well-being. When a person has such akhlaq, Allah will never let that person down. And now the flip side, those who sever their relationships, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the hadith, the Prophet said that the smell of Jannah is forbidden for such a person. And what is the smell of Jannah? The smell of Jannah can be smelled from a distance of 500 years. But it is prohibited, haram, for two people. Number one, Aq, who is disobedient to his parents. And number two, one who does qata rahmi, who severs these ties with his family, with his relatives. And not only this, that person is also deprived in akhirah, that Allah will not speak to that individual. Salasatun, three people that Allah Ta'ala will not speak to on Yawm al-Qiyamah, nor will Allah Ta'ala purify them on the Yawm al-Qiyamah. Number one is a drunkard. Number two is one who severs these ties of kinship. And third is a person who engages in black magic. So one becomes distant from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? There's a distance that comes. And there's this one very ajib, when I heard this hadith for the first time, I was taken aback. Very strong words. This is a hadith which is narrated by a Sahabi called Hazrat Abdullah bin Abi Awfa radiallahu ta'ala an. He narrates that this was the time of Hajjatul Wida and Friday, and we were in the Yawmul Arafah. This was Yawmul Arafah, and we were in the plains of Arafah, surrounded the Prophet ﷺ, sitting with the Prophet ﷺ. And in that gathering, the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned to us that be aware. Be aware if there is anyone amongst us in this gathering who has done qata rahmi, who has severed these ties with their relatives, with their kinship, then they should stand up and they should leave this gathering. A young Sahabi, he stood up and he left. And then after some time, he came back and he rejoined the circle. So the Prophet ﷺ asked him that, why did you leave and then why did you come back? And he said that when I heard your statement, I realized that I have severed ties with my khala, with my aunt. So I thought I will go and I will reconcile with her, join ties with her. I went back to her house and she asked me that, why are you here? I said, Assalamu alaikum, salam. I sent greetings to her. And I mentioned this hadith that you had mentioned. And I said that I'm here to seek forgiveness and to reconcile, to do sulah with you. So I gave her dua, she gave me dua. I have patched up my relationship with her. Now I've returned and I'm back here in this circle. So the Prophet ﷺ said to that young Sahabi that you did the right thing. You did the right thing because if there is a person who does qata rahmi, who severs these ties, if there is one such person present in a gathering, then because of that person, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's rahmat and mercy does not descend upon that gathering. Allahu Akbar. Imagine how much deprivation is there. How deprived a person would be who severs these ties of kinship, that which gathering is this? This is a gathering in the companionship of the Prophet ﷺ, the ma'iyyat of the Prophet ﷺ. And what is the occasion? Hajjatul Wida, the plains of Arafah, Yawm Arafah, the day of Friday, day of Jum'ah. And yet people in that gathering will be deprived of Allah Ta'ala's rahmah, and the whole gathering of Sahaba will be mahrum, will be deprived. Now imagine our own house, our own homes. In our house, if there is one such person, then how much lack of barakah would there be? And if there is in our house, every person is like that, then what will happen to such a home? We have to remove this obstacle. We should make this intention tonight that we want to join these ties of kinship. This is the reason why we have issues in our houses. There is no barakah in our homes, no barakah in our rizq, no barakah in our food, no barakah in our age, in our children, in our relationships. Right? If you want the barakah back in every aspect of our life, we need to join these ties with our relatives, with our family members, join these ties of kinship. And I'll just mention one last thing before I end, that a lot of times we think that joining ties of kinship means that those who do good with us, we should also do good with them, right? And if someone is severing ties with me, then I can also sever ties with that person. That's not true. It's the exact opposite. The Prophet ﷺ said that you should join ties with that person who cuts away from you, who severs relationship with you, right? In one hadith, very clearly the Prophet ﷺ said that the man who thinks that I'm going to do sila rahmi with someone who does sila rahmi with me, that's not what true sila rahmi is. That's tijarat. That's like a transaction. They're doing good, you're doing good to them. True sila rahmi is that you do good to someone who is doing bad to you, who's breaking away from you, who's severing ties with you. You at least take that initiative, right? You just say salam. You just on your own, you're open to connect. And now it's up to that. The ball is in the other person's court. It's up to them how they respond. But at least you on your own played your part and you wanted to mend ties. And that is all what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is looking for, right? So in summary then, we realize that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give all of us the tawfiq if we can practice this, this is a command that Allah Ta'ala has given us. That we have to fulfill the command of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala to be good with our relatives. It's a major sin to cut away. It's a major sin to sever these relationships. And Sila Rahmi covers all our relatives, right? And the benefit, perhaps the greatest benefit, is that you get Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, you get your Jannat, and you also get barakat in your dunya. You get dunya and deen. And on the other hand, the flip side, that you lose Allah, you lose the dunya, you lose Jannat as well. So may Allah Ta'ala give all of us the tawfiq and the ability that we can patch up with our relatives, we can practice this Sila Rahmi in our life as well. And through this act, may Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala pull us towards Him, and may Allah Ta'ala grant us His closeness. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.
Yes, if there is any questions.
Yes.
Does also include your neighbors and non-Muslims, or just the relatives?
That's a good question. Literally, the word Sila Rahim. Rahim means womb. So womb means those relatives which are blood relatives, right? So that's the first, you can say first circle that you go towards them. Those your immediate family members, your close relatives, your uncle, your aunt, your khala, your father's side cousins, mother's side, etc. But this also includes your distant relatives. Okay. As far as neighbors are concerned, obviously we're supposed to be good to them. There's a whole other lecture we can give, inshallah, at some point on the rights of neighbors. And if the neighbors, they happen to be Muslims, then double the right. And plus they happen to be relatives, triple the right. Right? And likewise with non-believers as well, that we should have husn zan with them and treat them well as well. Right? They also have rights over us.
देखिए मुशाहिदे में आया है कि तल्फी जब होती है ना रिश्तेदारों में आपस में, स्पेशली जब भाई बहन में आपस में, तो फिर वो एक बदमज़गी होती है और फिर वो बात आगे बढ़ती चली जाती है। तो इस सिलसिले में क्या आप क्या सजेस्ट करते हैं कि किस तरीके से दूसरे को ये बावर नहीं करवाया जा सके कि आपने जो काम किया है वो गलत किया और आप उस ताल्लुक भी ना, इसमें तो कोई शक नहीं है, जो बात आपने रखी है सामने, लेकिन ये के सामने वाले की भी इस्लाह हो इस तरीके से, क्योंकि मैंने तो यही देखा बहुत ज़्यादा जब ये मसला दरपेश आता है तो वो आपस में जो है ना वो रंजिश जो बनती है वो गलती की वजह से, वो किसी भी वजह से हो सकती है।
मैं इसका जवाब उर्दू में ही दे दूं?
हाँ बिल्कुल, आपसे
English please. Okay.
If you repeat that one also,
the question is that sometimes it happens that you sever ties with a family member or relative, and it's because your right has been violated, and you want to now highlight to the other person that you have done some injustice to me, and at the same time you want to maintain contact with them, but you also want them to realize their mistake, that you have done some injustice or zulm upon me. Is that the question?
Yeah.
Right. So how do you respond to that situation? All right. So that's so the way this works is that as long as you're thinking about the Islam of the other person, then you would not be able to patch up completely. In the other words, that if you're always thinking that other person would not want to even talk to you. So in here, this is the nafs part, that you have to subdue your nafs. You are on haqq, you are right, but you let go of your haqq for the sake of Allah Ta'ala's rahmat. And you seek that rahmat of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, and Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala will give you something better in return. First, take that step, maintain salam, maintain contact with them, and then as the relationship improves upon, then you could maybe at a particular time suggest to them that this is what you did. But if you at step one you mentioned that this is what you did wrong to me, then the baat banegi nahi, right? They won't talk to you because they think they're not at fault, and you're highlighting that you are at fault. So then how will the conversation take place? That's not Salah Rahmi then. Salah Rahmi means that you just subdue your nafs. You let go of your right initially, you say that fine, right? I'm doing it. And the thing about Salah Rahmi is that you're not doing for the other person. If you're always thinking about the other person, that I want my right and I wouldn't want to be let down in that person's eyes, it's not about the other person. It's actually about your relationship with Allah Ta'ala. You're doing it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you have that conviction in your heart and that sincerity, ki ya Allah aapke liye hai. My nafs hates me. I don't want to do this. This is very difficult, very burdensome on my nafs to lower myself like this, even though I'm not at fault. But Ya Allah, I'm only and solely doing it for your sake, so that you become happy. And when you have that sincerity and you do it purely for Allah's path, Allah Ta'ala will give you izzat. There's no doubt about that. Right? That Allah will never disgrace you, will never humiliate you. Izzat and honor will come for that person who does this. I want to share a very personal story with you. I gave a similar talk a few years ago when I was in Pakistan. It was Ramadan. And it was like an end of Taraweeh talk. So there's one person who was from journalism. He was about to leave the masjid and he said that I heard your talk about Sila Rahmi and I just came back and I sat down. And I listened to your talk and then I went away. And then 3 days later, he came back to me and said that I just want to share a story with you. And I said, sure. I don't know that person who he was. So he said that, your talk about Sila Rahmi. I said, yes. He said, so I was not on speaking terms with my brother. And it was his fault. And I don't want to lower myself in exactly what you mentioned, that why should I take that first step, right? He is at fault. All of those things were in my mind. I was always justifying myself with that. Okay, I want to mention that you are at fault and this is your fault. And I would always justify, rationalize myself with that you're okay, just sever ties, just keep a distance. Well, when you explained all of this in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, it was also Ramadan in the last 10 days. So he thought that I was feeling something. He said, I took that step. I put a foot on my nafs and I called my brother. And I said, just want to say salam, it's Ramadan. And I just wanted to inquire how you're doing. And he says, my brother, he completely changed. He melted from the inside. And he said that, no, it was my fault. I'm sorry. And he said that now, we're like the best of friends. He came back and he told me the whole story himself. He said, I just wanted to thank you for that one talk that you gave in that hadith that you mentioned. He said, for so many years, I was just justifying myself with the same thought that I'm right, that person is wrong. Why should I take that first step? So, this is Iman, right? This is what Allah is promising, that, you do it for Allah's sake. It's not for anyone else. You don't even know what the response will be. Even that person can continue to sever ties and says, he is answerable for his actions. We are answerable for our actions. We did what Allah loves and Allah Ta'ala will give us honor, inshallah. We'll get all the benefits, right? Deen, dunya, Jannah, akhirah, everything. Hope that answers the question. Yes.
So it's not always true that if a person takes the initiative, then the person in front of us will accept.
Sure.
It's possible that we'll always get the negative response.
That's fine. But you did your part. You did your part because you just showed and proved yourself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah, I value your hukum. And you said that take the first step, join ties with those who sever. Allah, I am willing to join ties. I said salam to that person. This also doesn't mean that you have to become best friends with that individual, right? That has to become your best partner, right? Sometimes there are differences in mizaj, in temperament, right? But what this is saying is don't completely blank away. Don't completely sever and cut off. Like salam, dua, Don't need to be like buddy, right? That's fine.
For how long should we do this? Just once or like?
You make it known that I intend to patch up. Right? I'm just saying salam to you. In our time, it's very easy to do this, right? With the cell phone. Write one SMS, that's salam, Ramadan, Eid. I just wanted to send this message to you to ask that how you're doing. Hope everything is well. Eid Mubarak. That's it. That's all that I think. Just inquiring about their well-being, asking about them, saying salam, requesting du'as. That's all that you need to do. One phone call, right? And you prove to Allah that, Ya Allah, I'm Salah. Very easy. Yes.
Some of the relatives, like getting calls means you have to fulfill something, there's some demand. And one time if you say no, then that's it. All your relation comes. What to do in that situation? Because getting call means you just get ready. This call means something. What to do such?
So I want to add the same question on top of that. Sometimes because we know that they are calling for something, and sometimes like you're saying no, feel bad. In that way, we try to not connect with them. Sometimes we try to avoid. So how it's fitting in that?
I understand. Yeah, I understand the dynamics. You just have to do it with a bit of wisdom, with hikmat, and ask Allah Ta'ala. We should all make dua to Allah Ta'ala for that hikmat, that we don't break the other person's heart. This is, I think, the key. That there are ways that you can avoid that situation without breaking the heart of that person. Because breaking the heart is something which is also very big sin in our deen, right? So finding ways, and again, it really depends on the relationship, the type of relationship that you have with that individual. And I think it's like a case-to-case basis where you can, there's no general answer for that. It depends on case to case, right? But there are ways in which you can avoid that situation, but still you can, maintain contact with them and do sila rahmi with them. Yes.
So should you be persistent if there's no progress?
Should you be persistent if there's no progress? If you did it once, then you did sila rahmi. You're no longer doing qata rahmi. Okay, so your name will be written now in the other register. So that's fine. And you should continue. But I would suggest to you, I would encourage you that you keep on persisting in that. If there's no response from the other side, you keep doing what you're supposed to do.
How about if that's actually like making a situation worse by being persistent?
In what sense?
Like if you're trying to reconcile with him, but he's not like allowing you to do that, and it's literally making him like more angry.
Yeah, then you just pull back, right? So you give the handshake and that person is not shaking your hand. Just withdraw them. Right?
Distance from a person because interacting with them creates conflict, and does that count as like severing ties, or is that like avoiding greater conflict?
That's fine, you can avoid it. Yeah.
Sila Rahmi literally means not having anything negative about
No,
the person.
Sila Rahmi means joining ties of kinship.
It means having-
You can have differences with them. You can have differences on different perspectives, different worldviews. But, if they're poor, you help them. If they're sick, you ask about their health. If there's an occasion of joy at your side, you invite them. If there's some sadness on their part, you inquire that is everything okay. If they ask for some counsel, you give them like a mashwara, counsel for sincerity. That's what Sila Rahmi means.
But if, let's say, we are not able to contact that person for some reason, typically the relatives are, there are a lot of relatives in India, Pakistan, like for a particular person. So it's not possible that you maintain constant contact with that person every time. It's possible that one person or few persons are not able to contact even for a few years. Right? I don't have anything negative about the person. Just that I'm not able to contact the person for a few years.
That happens, yeah, that happens. One should try, one should make every effort, at least I would say your immediate family members and your close family relationships. We should make some effort. It requires investment of time and energy. And I say, yeah, people here, sometimes they don't make that investment. There's one hadith where the Prophet said that I try to make my relationships with Abdul Muttalib, the clan, the relatives that I have. Because of that, I make those relationships damp. I keep them wet. And that word is telling us that if you want to keep these relationships damp, you need to invest time, invest effort, energy. So one should be careful about this, right? This is a responsibility. At least I would say of close relatives. Otherwise, relationships will become dry. Again, if you look at that metaphor, it will become dry, rigid, and then eventually it will break apart. We need to keep pouring water so that they keep damp and the moisture is there.
In-laws come also in the same category.
Sorry?
In-laws,
Yes.
wife, parents, wife.
Definitely more than that, right? Wife is wife.
And if the father or the brother, they don't accept their religious right, you see, of the land or something like that,
I'm sorry, I don't understand your question.
inheritance, with Surah An-Nisa, every girl has share,
Ji.
half of the brother.
Yes.
So if they don't accept that,
Unfortunate, very unfortunate. This happens in a lot of cultures. Extreme injustice.
yeah,
Again, you maintain salam dua with them, but then find a way to convey that please give inheritance to the daughter. This is a shari hukum of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ask someone maybe to help someone whom they might listen to.
Inheritance के मसले के लिए तो सबसे ज़्यादा problems.
बहुत
they
मसले होते हैं,
don't
बहुत-
accept, you see.
I know,
और
this
उसमें
is
शेख फतवे भी मिल जाते हैं उनको.
extremely unfortunate. Allah Ta'ala revealed a whole Surah Nisa to mention the rights of women. So unfortunately, in some cultures, I understand that.
So sometimes the sisters, they don't even know that I have so much.
They don't even know about this.
He has,
So the
he
brothers,
has,
like, they are still in a very good term with the sisters, but they have like not given their part of the right they have. So is it like still counted as a part of Qatarami or Sidarami?
No, this is different. Right? Not giving inheritance, this is another sin. And like I said to you, I completely understand where you're coming from, and this is a big problem. And we need to play our own part in actually making away the teaching, Islamic teaching, and how important this teaching is. And it's ajib in Quran, Allah Ta'ala, when He mentions about Salah, the command is Aqim as-Salah. Right? 2 words, establish Salah. No details are given. Zuhar is this, Fajr is this, Maghrib is this. For all of those details, you need to go to the Hadith. But for inheritance, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the entire set of rulings in the Quran. That the daughter will get this much and the son will get this much, the father, the wife. So this is something which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hasn't left to the Sunnah. Quran itself is explaining, that's how important inheritance is. Someone needs to explain. Yes.
and that gentleman had 8 daughters and 2 sons. And he gave everything to 2 sons.
What about the sons? They can't give.
No, they also.
The sons are taking the share and the wrong. Even if my father gave me, I know that this is not belong to me.
I did myself.
The sons, when their father dies, they should redistribute according to the Sharia. So there is this crime happened with 3 people, not only the father is wrong. And question.
Yes.
So is there a minimum and maximum in joining the Salat al-Rahim? So I think most of the question is like, I have brothers, I have uncles, I have cousins, I have far cousins. So how can I cannot deal with all of them the same.
Right.
I cannot keep it with them, the relationship, especially with big families. Sometimes you have 100 cousins or 150 cousins. And so is there any minimum things that I have to do or to keep the Salat al-Rahim on?
Yeah, so the minimum, there's no such as like a minimum threshold here. Let the other person know that you're available, that you want to share in their happiness. And in our times with SMS and WhatsApp messages, sometimes with one message you can send to everyone basically. It's sort of easy that day, in our times. But sometimes it also happens, even if there were no phones, sometimes it happens that your relative is far away in the US, there's no way sort of, if someone is living in Pakistan or India, but they're not sort of deliberately broken the tie. So there's nothing that happened in between. They're just sort of, because of distance, are inaccessible. So that's not qadarin, right? And whenever they get a chance to meet each other, they can sort of meet, right? So that's fine, right? In our time, someone wants to keep those relationships down, we can, like I said, that you can use cell phones to sort of inquire about that. You take like the extra step, right? But otherwise, if because of inaccessibility or long distance or just due to those circumstances, one is unable to meet them, that's fine.
I think Shaykh has a program in Queensland. So I think on behalf of ICK management, I'm requesting, because we have our kids here. So they have winter break. Just in a few minutes, just any maswara to them, inshallah. Just anything. Just before you're making dua, inshallah.
Never lie. Even if there's a big loss, right? Whatever the loss is, we can bear the loss. Never lie. Number two, be obedient to your parents. Parents are your door to Jannah, and value them. And number three, do khidmat, help others. Right? 3 points. What are the 3 points? Anyone? Don't lie. Parents, do khidmat. One more. Pray. Pray salah on time. Take it. Inshallah. Let's just make the سبحان ربي الوهاب اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين Ya Allah, Rabbana zalamna. Allah, we have done zulm on ourselves. Allah, we have wronged ourselves, we have bruised ourselves. Ya Rabbi Kareem, we come to you tonight in Tawbah. Ya Rabbi Kareem, we ask that you accept our Tawbah tonight. Ya Rabbi Kareem, forgive us for all the sins that we have done, for all the sins that we remember, for all the sins that we have forgotten, all the sins that we did in public, for all the sins that we did in private. Ya Rabbi Kareem, Ya Allah, forgive us for the sinful thoughts, the sinful emotions, the sinful memories, the sinful feelings. Ya Rabbi Kareem, whatever hukukul love that we have violated, Ya Rabbi Kareem, make tawbah. Ya Rabbi Kareem, forgive us for our violations of hukukul love. Ya Rabbi Kareem, forgive us for the violations of our hukukul ibad. Ya Rabbi Kareem, Ya Allah, we wish to do sila rahmi. We wish to revive this command of yours in our life. Ya Allah, grant us tawfiq, grant us himmah. Ya Rabbi Kareem, Ya Allah, grant us all the barakat and blessings which are associated with this command, with reviving all your commands in our life. Ya Rabbi Kareem, Ya Allah, whatever distance that has come between us and you because of our sins, Ya Rabbi Kareem, remove that distance. Ya Rabbi Kareem, you have said in Quran, Fa'inni Kareeb, that you're Kareeb to us, that you're near to us. Allah, we also want to feel that nearness. We also want to feel that closeness, that intimacy. Ya Rabbi Kareem, Ya Allah, grant us your qurb, grant us your nearness. Ya Rabbi Kareem, ignite the flame of your muhabbat and love in our hearts. Allah, make us love you more than any other love that we have in our hearts. Allah, increase us in our love for you, increase us in our desire for you, increase us in our yearning for you, increase us in our longing for you, increase us in our talab for you. Ya Rabbi Kareem, Ya Allah, we want you from you, Ya Allah. Ya Rabbi Kareem, Ya Allah, we're sick and tired of living a life which is distant from you, a life which is heedless of you. Ya Rabbi Kareem, Ya Allah, we ask you that you come into our life. Allah, we want to live a life that is pleasing to you. Allah, from the tips of our hair to the soles of our feet, Allah, make us such that we become pleasing to you. Allah, change us in such a manner that we become pleasing to you. Ya Rabbi Kareem, Ya Allah, we present our hearts to you tonight. Ya Allah, revive our dead hearts. Ya Rabbi Kareem, purify our impure hearts. Ya Rabbi Kareem, fill our hearts with your muhabba, fill our hearts with your nur. Allah, fill our hearts with hidayah, fill our hearts with your rahmah. Ya Rabbi Kareem, Ya Allah, accept us, Ya Allah, for the reality of Iman, the hakikat of Iman. Ya Allah, accept us for the revival of Iman, the renewal of Iman. Allah, grant us strength and himmat in our Iman. Ya Rabbi Kareem, we live in testing times. There are fitnas which are within the Muslim Ummah. There are fitnas which are outside the Muslim Ummah. Ya Rabbi Kareem, we ask that you protect and safeguard our Iman, the Iman of all our family members, all of our relatives, our children, our offspring. Ila Yawmiddin. Ya Rabbi Kareem, accept these du'as from all of us tonight. Ya Rabbi Kareem, enable us to follow the footsteps of the Nabiyeen, the Siddiqeen, the Shuhada, the Salihin. Ya Rabbi Kareem, Ya Allah, whatever pious intentions any one of us have in our hearts. Ya Rabbi Kareem, Ya Allah, you know what lies in our heart. Allah, you are our Malik, you are our Khalik, you are our Razik. Ya Rabbi Kareem, we have gathered here in your house. Ya Rabbi Kareem, Ya Allah, don't return us empty-handed from this house of yours. Ya Allah, in the dunya we have seen another person, when there is a host who invites guests to his house, he gives us something to his guests. He doesn't return his guests empty-handed. Ya Rabbi Kareem, Ya Allah, we are also gathered here in your house. Ya Rabbi Kareem, Ya Allah, we ask you that you return us, Ya Allah, with the barakah, with the joy, with happiness, with your rahmah, with your love, Allah, with your raza, with your pleasure. Ya Rabbi Kareem, Ya Allah, you have said in the Quran that فَأَمَّا السَّائِلَ فَلَا تَنْهَرْ, that when a questioner, a beggar comes to you, don't return that person empty-handed. Ya Rabbi Kareem, we are also beggars in your court. Allah, we are also questioners before you, gathered here before you in your house. Ya Allah, we ask you, Ya Allah, don't return us empty-handed. Ya Rabbi Kareem, Ya Allah, we ask you for your raza. Allah, grant us your raza, grant us your liqa. Allah, grant us your muhabba, your mahbubiyya, your closeness, your intimacy. Ya Rabbi Kareem, Ya Allah, grant us the lazzat in our ibadat, the joy and the pleasure of ibadat, the joy and the pleasure in our deen. Ya Rabbi Kareem, accept these du'as from all of us tonight. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم وصلى الله تعالى على حبيبه خير خلقه محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
Jazakumullah khair. Thank you very much for staying out this visit today, inshallah. Time for food right now, inshallah. So, inshallah, in a few minutes, inshallah, we'll go there. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Thank you very much.
Jazakumullah khair.